Hey everybody, welcome back to another Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker video. And this video is going to be my spoiler review of the movie. So this is episode 9, this is the final one of the new sequel trilogy, and it's also the end of the Skywalker saga, so of all 9 films. So this is going to be a full spoiler video. I have a spoiler-free video you guys can go and check out. If you click that little eye, you guys can go and check out my spoiler-free review where we just talk about the movie in general without going over any like major plot points or anything like that, spoiling the movie. But this is a spoiler one, so if you have not seen the movie yet, make sure you guys go and do so already, because this is going to be like spoiling everything about the movie. So don't let yourself get spoiled. Click out of the video now if you haven't seen it. So let's get started. Alright, that movie was amazing. I am a huge fan. I know a lot of you guys out there, a lot of the internet and Star Wars fans hate the movie, and I'm going to have a separate video talking specifically about that, about like people's opinions on it and why it's hated and why it's not. This one's more of a review of just the movie itself and my opinion, not going into other people's opinions, but my opinion. My opinion is that this movie is great. If I were to rate this movie like on its own, I would say it's like a 10 out of 10. This is a great Star Wars movie, great action movie, and it's just fantastic all around. So I've seen this movie 3 times already. I'm probably going to go see it a 4th one tonight, and I'm really excited, man. I am personally really satisfied with the way this movie ended and with the way it wrapped up everything too. So first off, let's start out with some of my favorite scenes in the movie, things I really liked about it. So opening scene of the movie, the whole opening like sequence was so metal and so sick. It starts out with Kylo Ren on Mustafar, which is actually confirmed in like the visual dictionary that that planet was Mustafar. But he's on Mustafar, and he just like slices through all those dudes in the forest. Such a sweet scene, dude. That was so awesome. He just blasting through everybody, and then he eventually finds that Sith like waypoint. What is that? The like compass thing, that little like pyramid thing that he uses to actually go to Exegol. So he goes to Exegol, and he sees Palpatine there. He meets Palpatine, and that's like the legendary like homeworld of the Sith or whatever. And so he goes there, he like travels down to the place, and like Palpatine's talking to him. And so he reveals that that Palpatine was actually controlling things, all the things in the background, and that he created Snoke, and that it like shows like a couple different like clones of Snoke in like this container thing. So that explains Snoke, that Snoke was created by Palpatine and Lord Sidious. So that was pretty cool. Kind of explains that like all the voices that Kylo ever heard were coming from Palpatine, from Snoke, from Vader. So all those voices were coming, from him. And then it also reveals that, of course, Palpatine is alive. That was part of the opening crawl, was saying that Palpatine's alive, and there's like a transmission going through for everybody. And it actually shows him, so he's like hooked up to this like arm thing that allows him to like move around. But you see his face is like all deformed. He's got like frosted over eyes, so he's like undead or something like that. But really cool. And I really like the way they had the Emperor actually look in this movie was honestly really cool. And also Kylo's reaction to him was pretty sweet too. But also the Emperor then reveals to Kylo who Rey's like lineage is and all that. So that's discussed later in the movie. But Rey is a Palpatine. So kind of cool that like Rey's parents were nobodies. So just like in The Last Jedi, how Kylo reveals to Rey, he's like, yeah, your parents, they're no one. They didn't have any significance. Your parents, no one. And that the real person that like is important to Rey's lineage is that her grandfather is Palpatine. So it's Rey Palpatine. She's a Palpatine. That is insane. I don't think almost anybody guessed this. Like, I would say like less than 2% of the Star Wars fan base. Like if you had like a giant poll and you had like a bunch of different like last names, so you had like Skywalker, Kenobi, Palpatine, Windu, whatever Yoda's last name is, like Plo Koon, I don't know, like freaking Jyn Erso, like all these different like names, and then be like, okay, who is Rey related to out of any of these? Like, guarantee you Palpatine would be like 2% of people would have guessed that. Like nobody was guessing Palpatine. Everybody, was assuming she was a Skywalker or a Kenobi. Those were like the 2 guesses. But Last Jedi was like, yeah, no, your parents were no one. So everyone, like the Star Wars fan base, was kind of like, come on. She can't just be no one. How does she have the Force then if she's just like a no one, But it's like, she's a Palpatine. And that also had other implications in the movie, because there's that scene where they were actually on Pisana, on that planet, and Chewie actually gets taken by the Knights of Ren, and he gets into that transport, and then you see Ray is like using the Force, and like the ship is like going away, and Finn's like, they took Chewie, and she just looks up there and just freaking grabs it. She just looks up, uses the Force, grabs the ship, starts pulling it back. Dude, when I saw that in theaters, I was like about to lose my mind. I was like, no freaking way, that is so cool. Because like honestly, I mean, that's like a logical reaction to that. Something like in Star Wars movies before this, it's like if a ship takes off like that, like why can't you just like Vader, like, you know, they see the Millennium Falcon take out, you know, from Hoth. Why can't Vader just reach out, bring the Millennium Falcon back? Like, all right, use the Force. All right, you're back here. You can't go anywhere. Like, kind of cool. But she reaches out. She's like pulling it back. But then Kylo gets out of his TIE fighter, and he's using the Force too. And so they're both like competing, using the Force, trying to like hold the ship either way. And then freaking, you know, Rey's getting like kind of frustrated and annoyed because Kylo's like starting to overpower. And then she does a freaking Force lightning and destroys the ship. Like, at first, that was absolutely insane. She uses the Force lightning. She's... I was like, oh my gosh, that is crazy. Because the only, like, what? We've only ever seen Palpatine do Force lightning. We never saw Vader do Force lightning. Or, I think, really anybody else. It was just Palpatine. So it makes sense that since she's, like, the lineage of Palpatine, she can do Force lightning, too. But that was so sick. She uses Force lightning. I mean, it sucked though because it blew up the transport, and you know, she killed Chewie, and like you can see on her face, she's just like, and she immediately goes Chewie, and then even Kylo was like super shocked. Kylo was like, bruh, like she was like competing with me, and she was still pretty strong in the Force to like, you know, bring that ship, and we were going back and forth. He was a little shocked by that. 2, shocked that she could freaking use Force lightning. And 3, she just like blew up her friend. And then like Finn's like, we gotta go. So they get on the ship and they take off. That was incredible. There's also that scene from the trailer where Rey's running. She like does that backflip and like slices up Kylo's TIE fighter too. That was so cool. And in the movie, I love the sound that it makes. Like as the TIE fighter's like blows up. That was so cool. And yeah, so then they hop in the ship and they take off, and like Finn's talking to her, and Rey's just like super upset because she killed Chewie. Now, okay, they killed Chewie, right? And this, at that point in the movie when that happened, I was just like, no, they can't do that. There's no way. Like in Force Awakens, they killed out, you know, Han Solo. Last Jedi, there goes Luke, and I'm like, in Rise of Skywalker, they're gonna kill Chewie. I was like, no way, and it can't be by Rey. Like, it would have made sense story-wise for them. Like, okay, like, it probably would have motivated her character or something like that. But I was like, no way. You're going to have Rey kill Chewie. It's going to be, like, friendly fire. But later, and, like, that was, like, an intense couple minutes there. It was, like, 2 minutes later, they revealed that it was another transport. And, I mean, when I watched the movie again, you do see 2 transports there when they actually, like, bring Chewie on. But in, like, the next scene, there's only the 1 transport escaping. So, like, it still lines up, you know, it's not like it was like a continuity error or anything like that, but like, you revealed that there was another ship and that Chewie's there and stuff, so Chewie was alive, he didn't die, which was cool. But, man, good stuff there. Sorry, I'm getting like a little bit too much in the middle of the movie. But the beginning of the movie, though, there was the whole scene with like Poe, with Chewie. I don't remember what that alien guy's name is, but he was on the ship trying to like fix things as well, and Finn's on the ship too, and R2. And they get, like, within, like, they have, like, an Imperial spy, or not Imperial, I guess, it's a First Order spy, and they get information from that, and there's the whole thing, like, in that ice planet thing with the TIE fighters chasing them, and he's light speed skipping. That was a really cool scene. That was an amazing opening sequence, when he's speed skipping, he's just going between all these planets. I don't think it was actually Cloud City. It looked kind of like it, but I'm pretty sure it wasn't Cloud City, but there's a bunch of cool different planets. Then they get back to something like Kloss or something, right? I've played it in Battlefront 2. I don't remember exactly what his name was. But that, like, jungle planet. They get there, and while they're doing that, you know, Rey's doing her training, and, like, I didn't notice this, I think, the first time I watched it, but she's, like, saying, she's like, be with me, or whatever, be with me, be with me. And, you know, she's obviously talking about, like, having the Force Jedi be with her. So, like, Force, you know, Ghost Luke and like all these other Force ghosts. But that was pretty cool. And then she's just like hovering in the air, kind of cool. It reminded me a little bit of Empire Strikes Back with like Yoda and stuff. But then, you know, she runs through the training course, which is really cool. But that's also when Kylo is doing the thing with, like, Darth Vader's helmet. And so she's getting, like, flashbacks and getting kind of distracted and stuff. And so she gets back to the ship. And that's when the Falcon shows up. And then, of course, there's that scene with Poe and Ray are arguing about, like, Ray should actually be out there fighting, not being stuck on that planet training. And so then they actually talk about the spy says that, you know, Palpatine is alive and that there's a new fleet. So that, like, it's called the Final Order, which I thought was a little interesting, like, bit of a name. It's like the Final Order. Not the First Order, but it's the Final Order. So, I mean, it makes sense, but it was kind of cool. Also, that scene where Palpatine, like, all the Star Destroyers just lift out, and there's just, like, hundreds of Star Destroyers there, dude. That was so cool. I really enjoyed that scene. I was like, dude, that is sick. Oh my gosh. Like, that is, like, gonna be like a new iconic Star Wars image, just all those Star Destroyers and stuff. Whew, that was crazy. So then, you know, they're talking about that, and they say that Palpatine and this, like, Sith fleet is on a planet called Exegol, and they're talking about how it's like the Sith homeworld or something like that, or a Sith planet. And so then Rey is like, hey, General, can I talk to you? Because Rey knows what Exegol is, and she says that you have to have, like, the Sith Wayfinder things to be able to find it. And so she knows that there was this, like, Sith, like, loyalist or something like that, who was actually, like, trying to find it, and that Luke was actually looking for, was trying to find Exegol. And so they're going to where Luke's trail went cold. So that's where they go to Pisana, and that was really cool. But yeah, so they ended up falling down into the pit thing, and they found that dagger. I thought the whole kind of storyline about the dagger and, like, the inscription thing was kind of interesting. I'll talk about that in a second, but I felt like it was a lot similar to the Codebreaker thing from The Last Jedi, about how, like, they needed a code to get onto the ship to, like, slip through their shields or something like that. They had to go on this huge journey to get this code. So I honestly thought that was what that journey was going to be like, was to be able to crack this, like, code on the dagger. You're going to have to go find this Codebreaker thing, because they're, like, saying that, you know, 3PO can read it, but he can't tell him what it says, which at first I was like, what? How come he can't tell him? But then I was like, oh, okay, you know, it makes a little bit more sense. It's like, you know, a Sith language, and, like, it makes sense that 3PO wouldn't be able to translate it. But yeah, and then there was the whole thing with the snake. I did like that scene, however, with the serpent thing, about how Rey actually used this new force ability where she could actually, like, transfer her life force into the snake thing to heal it, which was actually a really cool intro into, like, her abilities for this movie, because she uses it later on in the movie too. So that was really cool, kind of like an intro to that, and seeing, like, because, I mean, in that scene, it was really great acting by Daisy Ridley, but you can just see kind of, like, the fear on her face where she's like, I don't know if this is going to work or not. Is this going to work? And she's, like, doing it. She's like, okay. Like, she's still frightened, but she's, like, thinking, she's like, I think I can do this. And she does it. And then they escape, of course. And so then they're saying, you know, once they get on the ship and stuff with the dagger for Exegol, they're going to have to go find a Codebreaker or whatever to be able to actually, like, crack 3PO's head open and be able to translate it. So, like I said, I thought it was going to be a lot similar to the thing in The Last Jedi, where they have to, like, go to this weird planet and find this Codebreaker, but the Codebreaker's not actually going to be who they think it is, and yada yada yada. Yeah, I didn't like that storyline with the, like, casino and stuff in Last Jedi with Rose and stuff. But I mean, I guess speaking of Rose was actually in this movie at the beginning, which was really cool that, you know, she returned in this movie. I mean, they can't really just get rid of her character, but it was also interesting that there was a scene between Finn and Rose where Finn's like, all right, come on, Rose, let's go. But Rose is like, no, I got to stay here and, like, study these Star Destroyers and stuff for when, or, like, in case we find them, like, if we find them. And then Finn's like, if? And she's like, okay, when? But I thought that was kind of an interesting and fun scene, because it explains why Rose wouldn't go with them, but it also, I felt like it was more of a nod to the Star Wars fan base, where it's like, hey, we understand you guys didn't like Rose in The Last Jedi, so we're not going to, like, bring her along in this movie too. We're not going to force you guys to, like, live with Rose for a second movie, because we know you guys didn't like Rose, so we're going to kind of just drop that whole Rose and Finn, like, love storyline. We're going to drop that all together, which I think was a good decision. Like, you might disagree, you might say, like, for continuity, like, why wouldn't Rose still love Finn or something like that? Like, I think it's a good thing in the end that they didn't do that. They just kind of dropped that. They're like, okay, yeah, the fan base really didn't like that. Let's just not do anything with that. Okay, I like that. That was good. And then she didn't continue with them, so that, you know, kind of appeases some of the Star Wars fans who didn't like her. So that was good. But of course, you know, they actually go to this planet. Oh shoot, what? I don't remember what the planet's called. Goodness, man. I'm forgetting all the planets' names. But they go to this planet, and that's where they actually meet Zori. So actually, I got a Lego set somewhere. Where did I put it? Darn it. Here it is, right here. And it actually has Zori. So this is Zori. Zori Bliss, apparently, is her name. But that's what she looks like. She's got this like cool helmet. I think we've seen this helmet before in Star Wars. I thought I recognized it. But Zori, also on that ship though, I think we got introduced to Dio, which is really cool. I really like Dio. Dio's a really cool droid. I feel like all the droids we've had in Star Wars have all been really cool. I mean, 3PO and R2 are two really cool droids. I mean, we've had those guys from the beginning. And then, of course, in The Force Awakens, we were introduced to BB-8. And then, of course, then we also have Dio, which is really cool. And, I mean, even in, like, Solo and Rogue One, you know, we had droids in those ones, too, that were honestly really cool and really fun. So I think droids in Star Wars just have, like, a really fun, cool place. But I also recently found out that Dio was being voiced by J.J. Abrams, which is kind of cool. But anyways, so they actually fly to this planet, and then there's a scene, you know, kind of, like, confronting them about Poe and Poe's past, and, like, talking to her because she, like, wants to kill him. And then they recognize that Rey's, like, you know, the scavenger. She's the one that the First Order's been searching for. So they're like, yo, like, if we capture her, like, she'll, like, definitely pay for this bounty. And then Rey just, like, absolutely wrecks everybody and has the lightsaber, like, pointed at Zori. And then Zori's like, you know what? You're all right. I like you. You probably don't care, but I like you. And Rey's like, I care. I thought that was a cool scene. You know, Rey, you know, likes and that she really cares about what other people think about her. Which makes sense a lot for her character because her character is kind of a loner, so she would really care about what other people think about her. I think that was really appropriate for her character. But anyways, they go into this lab with, oh man, what's his name? With like Bobo Freak, I think is what his name is. Freak? Something like that. Bobo. But that guy, he's like this little tiny dude. So cute, so awesome, dude. And so they're talking to him. And he starts like cracking open 3PO, and 3PO's like, I'm taking one last look, sir, at my friends, which I personally thought in that scene, because it was saying in the movie that it was going to do like a full like memory wipe of 3PO. So 3PO wouldn't remember anything after they did this, which I was like, ooh, because it, you know, it kind of has certain implications where it's like, do we really want to basically, I mean, you're not killing 3PO, but you're basically being like, okay, well, 3PO won't remember anything, so like he's going to be like a brand new character. So I was like, that kind of sucks. Like after 8 films, you know, because 3PO, like, remembers everything, clear back to, like, the Clone Wars, right? Well, actually, no. 3PO had his memory wiped already from Episode 3 in the end of that. So I guess R2 was the only one who remembers the Clone Wars. 3PO got his memory wiped already, but they're saying that R2 has a backup with 3PO's memory, too. So, but, you know, R2s are unreliable. So I was like, man, is 3PO really going to, like, lose his memory and stuff? So he did. They wiped him, and he actually spoke Sith, which is really cool. That's where his like eyes are all red, and that was so sick. I like that scene. They say that the like where the actual like Sith thing was, because there was only 2. There was the one on Mustafar. There was another one in like an Imperial vault or something like that on Endor. So I was like, that's so sick. So I mean, it actually makes a lot of sense because you think for like the original trilogy, like the Emperor probably would have kept one. In like, you know, in that like Imperial vault inside the Death Star, but the Death Star got like blown up. And then Vader had another one that he put on Mustafar with him, because that's where like Vader's castle is and stuff. So really cool. And so then they're leaving, but the First Order is showing up. I thought that was kind of cool. Also, okay, sorry. I know I'm like backtracking a little bit here, but I thought that scene between like I really enjoyed that The Last Jedi set this up. Is that Force connection between Ray and Kylo, how they can like wherever they are in the universe, they can like be together. So like there was a scene where Ray was actually on Pasana and Kylo was like on his ship, and Kylo like reaches out, grabs her necklace and pulls it off her, and then like that's how they knew they were on Pasana, it's from that necklace. But it was also interesting though, the scene like prior to that set that up, is that like alien species chick was like actually asking Ray like, hey, this is my name, what's your name? And she's like, Ray. And she's like, what's your family name? What's your last name? And Ray's like, I don't know. And I really enjoyed scenes like that, just like the one with the like the serpent thing, is that it sets up things later in the movie. So it starts out with some like questions and like leads into this rather than just like immediately jumping into it later. So it's like, yeah, Ray's like, I don't have a last name. What is my last name? And then later on in the movie, then it kind of leads into that more. So then we get on to that planet. So Rey and all them, they actually like go up onto the ship because Zori actually gives them one of those little like captain's things. They put it into the ship and they go up onto the ship to rescue Chewie. They hop up on the ship, and Kylo is actually down on the planet after they do that. And they're looking around trying to find him, and he's got his Knights of Ren everywhere, which is really cool. I really did like how they had the Knights of Ren in this movie. They included them. I thought that was an amazing thing. But of course, then they're on the ship and they find Chewie and stuff. But then they get captured, which is it's Poe, Finn, and Chewie. They get captured, and they're about to be executed, right? And there's Hux there, and then Hux wastes the stormtroopers and is like, I'm the spy. Now that was another plot twist. I feel like the first kind of plot twist of the movie was maybe the Emperor was alive and about Snoke. I guess that could be considered a plot twist or whatever, but like we knew that from the trailer. And then the second one was when she killed Chewie and she has Force lightning. And then the third one would be when Hux turns out to be a good guy and he's like, hey, I'm the spy. And then later they're like, yo, why are you helping us? And he's like, I don't care that you guys win. I just need Kylo to lose, which, I mean, that's a great reason for his character. It'd be kind of weird for his character to, like, all of a sudden be a good guy and be like, yeah, no, because there's that whole scene in The Force Awakens where he's, like, doing that whole, like, thing where he's like, this will be the last day of the rebellion or something like that, where he's, like, yelling up there and you can see all the emotion in his face. He's all pissed, and then, the Starkiller Base actually, like, shoots and destroys the New Republic and stuff. But it'd be weird if all of a sudden his character was just like, hey, I'm a good guy now. But it's like, it's not like that. He's still a bad guy, per se, but he's just helping out the good guys because he wants Kylo Ren to lose. So that's what he says. He's like, I don't care that you guys win. I just want Kylo to lose. Which, makes sense because of what happens in Last Jedi. Because after Snoke died, Kylo Ren became the supreme leader. And, there's the whole, like, thing where, like, Ren's, like, choking out Hux and all this stuff. And there's, like, a lot of bad blood between them. So it makes sense for this movie that Hux is like, bro, I hate that guy. I don't care that you guys win. I just want him to lose. So really cool scene there. But then there was the scene where Rey's actually in Kylo's quarters. And you see, like, Darth Vader's helmet there. And it was kind of cool because there's that scene where, like, Rey's, like, looking over at it. And she's like, ooh. I thought she was going to go up and touch it because, like, I guess there's that whole thing where if you, like, touch objects in Star Wars now, you can, like, pull the memories from it. Kind of interesting. I don't know. But I thought she was going to do that. But she's like, ooh, that's Vader's helmet. Like, that's sick. And then, of course, then she, like, goes over, finds the dagger and stuff. But then, like, Kylo appears. So they kind of have, like, a lightsaber battle in there. And they're talking about how, like, when... I think this actually might have been the earlier scene in the movie where they were Force talking. But they're saying, Kylo was like, when I gave you my hand before, you almost took it. Like, you didn't take it. And then Rey's like, you almost turned, too. You almost helped me. Why didn't you? So, like, they're both, like, knowing that they want to work together. They want to be together. But Rey's like, but you're still Kylo Ren. You're not Ben Solo. And Kylo Ren, Ben Solo, he's like, you were so close to joining me and becoming a Sith and ruling with me. Why didn't you? So that was really cool. And then eventually they're having that lightsaber battle. Like, I really enjoyed that scene. It was a really well put together scene of, like, the cuts between the Kylo Ren down on the planet and Rey being up on the ship. So, like, the way it cut in between them, so you have, like, Kylo Ren's on the ship with her, is what it looked like, and then you also had, like, scenes where it looked like Rey was actually down on the planet and they're fighting. Really cool. Like, it was a really visually awesome scene. But, of course, then it basically all comes to an end when I think it was Rey actually slices, like, the podium that Vader's helmet was on, so it ends up falling, but it falls where Kylo is, so it lands on that planet with him, and it's just, like, falls on the ground there. And they both, like, look at it, and they're both like, oh, no. Rey's like, shoot. Because just like the whole thing with the necklace and how it can, like, transport between places like that using the Force, now Kylo knows where she is. And Kylo sees the helmet and is like, she's on my ship. And he's just like, there you are. I'll tell you when I get there. Because he's, like, basically telling her, he's like, I know who you really are, Rey. I know what your lineage is. I actually know who you are. Like, your parents were nobody, but I know who you really are. But I'll come and tell you. So they get up onto the ship, right? Kylo Ren actually shows up on the ship, and they're, like, trying to escape or whatever. Hux actually helps them out. And so they get onto the Falcon. They take the Falcon over, and then Rey's in the hangar, and that's when Kylo shows up and is in there. So earlier in the movie, Rey actually recognizes the ship of that, like, Sith guy, the Sith loyalist dude, And she recognized that because that's the ship that her parents actually were taken on, Jakku. So she recognizes it, and then she knows that that blade was actually used to kill her parents. So Kylo told her that it was Palpatine who like gave the order for them to like kill her parents, and also wanting to kill Ray. And so Ray is asking, like when they're in the hangar together, she's like, "Why did Palpatine give the order? Like, why did he want to kill me?" And Kylo's like, "Because you're his granddaughter. You are a Palpatine." And dude, that was such an insane scene. The whole theater just went quiet. Everyone's like, "Oh my gosh, she's a Palpatine?" Like, plot twist, like, hold on, like, hold the like record scratch, like, hold up. That was insane. And like, just like the look on Ray's face, Ray's like, "What?" But it also made sense too, because, you know, because of the Force lightning stuff too. But Kylo's like extending out his hand, you know, he wants Ray to join him. But of course the Falcon pulls up. And like, it looked like she was about to. She was like right there, like split second away from joining him. And the Falcon shows up and she kind of like kicks back a little bit too. She's like, no, I can't do this. I'm not a bad guy. So then chops on the Falcon. Falcon blasts away. And I really, okay, I gotta say this. I enjoyed what they did with Kylo in this movie. You know, he wasn't like this whiny brat weirdo guy like he was kind of in Force Awakens, and even like throwing a tantrum and stuff like he did in Force Awakens and in The Last Jedi. Now he was like a proper actual character that, like, between him and Rey, like, he likes Rey. He wants to be with her. But he's also conflicted still because, he, you know, there's the whole thing with like Han Solo where he's still Ben Solo. He still has good in him. But he also is still like wanting to be a Sith, and he still, you know, is a bad guy too. So it's like this inner conflict between Ben Solo and Kylo Ren. Just like, honestly, it's really similar to how in the original trilogy, how there was this inner conflict between Anakin Skywalker and Darth Vader. They're the same person, but it's like Anakin Skywalker's the good guy. He's on the light side. But then you have Darth Vader, who's the bad guy. So, really cool things that they did with Kylo's character in this movie. So then the scene after that is when Hux is actually explaining to that like main general dude what happened. And he's like, "Oh, they tricked me and they forced me to like take him to their ship, and like, you know, I got injured, I got shot in the leg." And then the dude just like grabs a blaster, bam, shoots Hux in the chest, kills him, and is like, "Inform the Supreme Leader. We found out who like the spy was." Because he knew that Hux is the spy. Like, it was pretty obvious too. So I'm glad that like it didn't just portray this guy as like an idiot. He's like, this guy's clearly the spy. Like, he would have been dead. They wouldn't have just like shot him in the leg. They would have shot him like the face. And so he's like, "Oh, this dude's a spy." Bam! So I mean, it was a fitting end to the character. I mean, I was talking to this with a friend the other day, that I think that it was really good for Hux's character in the movie. It kind of redeemed Hux's character, give him a little bit more depth, but also it's like Hux's character kind of needed to die. I mean, he would have died anyways, whether he stayed good or bad. Like, he would have been part of the First Order in his ship or whatever, probably would have gotten blown up. He probably would have died still. But, you know, this was a fitting end. He was like a good guy kind of in the end. You know, he helped out the good guys, so he died in a good way. So I thought that was good for his character, though. Okay, so hold on. I'm going to go back. On Pasaana, they actually find Lando. So Lando is there. He's saying that Wookiees stand out in the crowd, which is a really cool fan moment. And we all knew the Lando was coming back from the trailers and stuff. So that's actually how they meet Lando. And Lando is the one who like tells them a lot of the details about that ship out in the desert or whatever. Okay, so gotta point that out. But then they go to Endor, right? And it was really cool seeing the Death Star there on Endor, and there's all these waves and stuff there. And so then all these people ride up, and there's this chick there, and she's like telling them, they're talking to them, they're like meeting, and they're like, "Hey, we can take you there, but it's gonna be like tomorrow morning. It's like the soonest we can get you there." And for Rey, that's not good enough. So Rey ends up taking like a speeder thing over there, a little like skiff ship over there on her own, and takes it over there. And so she's like climbing through the Death Star. She gets up there. Really cool scene where she's like in the throne room, and it's really cool because like you can see like remnants that the throne room's destroyed from the Return of the Jedi. But like really cool, you can see like the Emperor's throne chair there, and then this like door opens up. So Rey like goes in, and then she actually like she's having like visions and stuff, and like sees herself in there, right? And she like grabs the Sith thing, the Sith like Wayfinder. Actually like grabs that. But then that's where, from the trailers, the whole like thing with like Rey with like the two like lightsabers that like fold down together, and then you can see like Rey has like Sith eyes and the lightsabers are red. You can see like Darth Rey or whatever, you know, and like you can see Rey like Jedi Ray and Sith Ray there together. And like Sith Ray's talking to her, and then does that weird, like, you can see her teeth become all sharp, and she's like, ah, it scares her, and Ray falls out. And then, like, she like drops the Sith thing, and then Kylo grabs it. And Kylo ends up breaking it, shatters it. It's basically like, hey, if you want to get to Exegol, there's only one way, and that's with me. So then they battle, really cool battle scene, and they end up like going out of the Death Star onto that platform with all the water stuff there. That's where we get all the shots from the trailer with all the water splashing all over on the mist and stuff. How did they have a really cool and amazing battle there? I really liked the way that Rey was kind of like getting around. I mean, she was like definitely an experienced Jedi now. Like, she was holding her own against Kylo. But something that a friend of mine pointed it out was that it seemed like in that fight, Rey was kind of getting worn down. Like, Kylo was wearing her down and was eventually getting the upper hand. Like, at first they were like evenly matched, but as time went on in that battle, like, Rey was kind of getting weaker and weaker, and Kylo was like getting the upper hand a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. I enjoyed how like Rey was doing those flips. She was always doing those like double backflips or whatever. And that's also when Finn and that other lady were there, and Finn was like trying to stop her. He's like, Finn! She's like, Rey! And then Rey's like, no! And forces him back, which I thought was really interesting. And I was like, is she a bad guy now? Like, that's her friend. Like, you know, Finn's a friend. So, But then there's the whole thing there where they're battling. And so then eventually, that's how it connects with, then it cuts back to the jungle planet, and then you have Leia there. And Leia, you know, eventually like just drops for like headset thing, starts walking away, and like Maz is like, this is it. This is, you know, she's gonna be giving it her all. This is, you know, she's gonna be using the rest of her strength to do this. And so she goes, and she's like, then all of a sudden starts talking Kylo or to Ben, her son. And Kylo's just like stunned for a second. He's like, what? And that's when Rey gets the upper hand, grabs his lightsaber and stabs him. She stabs Kylo Ren with his own lightsaber, and he's just sitting there like he just got stabbed with a lightsaber. And that's also when Leia, that's how she dies. And I was like, no. I mean, I was expecting Leia to die in the movie, but I was like, But to me, it kind of seemed a little bit like in that scene that Leia uses her Force life to actually save Kylo, because once Rey sees that she stabbed Kylo, and that, like, you know, Leia was caring for her son there, and that it was because of Leia that Kylo didn't just like kill Rey there. And now she stabbed Kylo. And I thought that was a really important scene, because it showed that bond between Rey and Kylo. Because Rey, in that moment, she was like, what have I done? Like, I don't really want to kill this guy. Like, this has been, I didn't kill Kylo Ren here. I just stabbed Ben Solo. And so you can see, like, she's like torn. She's like, he was trying to kill me. This is Kylo Ren attacking me. But I also stabbed him, and I, like, am killing Ben Solo too. So you can see that, like, conflict with her, which I thought was a really cool and interesting scene. But then she uses her Force life and transfers some of that to Kylo and actually heals him and saves him, so he doesn't die. But I felt like in the movie, maybe it was more like Leia was using some of her Force life too, to be able to, like, you know, help him. So that Kylo ends up living, and Rey's just like, okay, I saved him, but is he going to try and kill me again? So she ends up taking his TIE fighter and leaving. She leaves, which also, I didn't really think about this until just now, because that's where his, like, Sith thing was in that TIE fighter. So she takes off, gets out of there, and then so you just see, like, Kylo Ren or Ben Solo just kind of sitting there, because he's like, because they both knew that Leia had just died in that moment, and that's when Rey actually kills him, because he you know, they all feel through the Force that Leia just died. And so he's just lying there. His mom just died. His mom had spoken to him, and Rey had stabbed him, basically leaving him for dead, almost killed him, but then she healed him. She didn't kill him. So he's feeling all these things in that moment, and just being like, what? This was an amazing scene, dude. I almost cried. Then Han Solo shows up, and he's like, hey, kid. And there's this really touching scene right there between Han Solo with Harrison Ford. I was really surprised that he came back and reprised the role. And a lot of people are actually saying that they think that that scene was supposed to be Carrie Fisher. It's supposed to be Leia having that scene with him there. But of course, ever since, you know, Carrie Fisher passed away, she couldn't do that scene. So instead, Harrison Ford stepped in and did it instead. So it's really interesting, though, because it had a lot of the same elements from The Force Awakens, where Kylo Ren or Ben Solo's like, I don't know if I have the strength to do this. And then, of course, you know, Han Solo, like, puts his hand on his, like, cheek or whatever like that. And it felt like exactly like the scene from The Force Awakens. It looked almost exactly like it. And I was so panicked in that scene, dude. I thought that Kylo Ren was going to stab him again. I thought he was going to be like Kylo Ren again. And I'm calling it now. Somebody's gonna cut it. Somebody's gonna make a cut when it like comes out on Blu-ray or whatever of that scene where they're gonna cut in sections from The Force Awakens. So it's gonna be like Han Solo comes back from the dead, you know, and like he's living in, you know, Kylo's memory, and like does that, and Kylo's like, I don't know if I, you know, if I can do this, and Han's like, yeah, you can do it. And then somebody's gonna cut it with The Force Awakens where Kylo just gets him again. He's like, you're 0 for 2 now, you know, but. Really touching though. And then you see Kylo just throws his lightsaber into the water, which I was like, okay, that was the part of the movie. That is when Kylo Ren dies. Rey kills Kylo Ren. She kills Kylo Ren, but she didn't kill Ben Solo. That's when he stops becoming Kylo Ren. And that's when he becomes Ben Solo. So then Rey actually goes to Octu, and she goes there and she's like destroying the TIE fighter there, and then like she has Luke's lightsaber. She throws it into the TIE fighter when it's all burning, and you see Luke catch it. And he's just like, what are you doing? And like they have like a heart-to-heart there, and they're just talking, and like Rey's like, you know, I've got to do something here. I can't just like sit here, because she was like, I'm going to do what you did. I'm going to like stay on Octu now. I can't do this. I'm going to be a Sith. You know, because I had a vision that I'm going to end up on the throne with Kylo. And I can't do that. I'd rather sit here and be nobody than risk being, you know, a Sith, being the bad guy. And Luke is like, no, you can't do that. You can't do what I did. I failed. I was here. I was too afraid to do this. And I can't do that. So then she actually, like, Luke actually shows her something on in his little hut. And it's Leia's lightsaber, which they had a really cool scene there about Leia's lightsaber, about how like Leia was actually training to be a Jedi. She had her own lightsaber and stuff, and it had some really cool like CG throwbacks to like old school Luke, like Luke from like Return of the Jedi, and Leia, so old like Mark Hamill and Carrie Fisher, and really cool scenes where like basically Carrie Fisher couldn't finish her Jedi training, and she said that she's like, I can't be a Jedi, I can't do this, but somebody else will be able to. Eventually somebody else is going to come along and be able to use this lightsaber for good. So Rey actually takes the lightsaber. She goes over to the TIE fighter and she grabs that like Sith Wayfinder thing. She takes that. And then, which is really cool, you see Luke rising his X-Wing from like the sea there, which was a really nice kind of nod throwback to Empire Strikes Back. But it was really cool though, because the X-Wing comes up, and then that's how Rey gets in the X-Wing and takes off with it. So that's how she gets out of the island after, you know, she destroys Kylo's like TIE fighter, but she also has that Sith like Wayfinder thing. So she actually is going, and she's like mapping a chart through like the compass thing to actually get to Exegol. So the Resistance actually sees that. They see that, you know, this is Luke's X-Wing, but they realize it's Rey. So they like Rey's like plotting out a course for him. So they follow that course, and she gets to Exegol. So she gets to Exegol and actually like goes in and like confronts Palpatine, and Palpatine's there. I thought that was a really cool scene, like being able to see them connect. And Palpatine's basically like, if you strike me down, you are going to become a Sith. Like, all the Sith live in me, in Palpatine, and if you kill me, if you complete this ritual, all Sith are going to live in you. So that's how she would end up on the throne. So she's like, Palpatine's like, you know, take your place on the throne as Empress Palpatine. Of course, then Kylo is actually like coming after her. So Kylo lands in a TIE fighter there on Exegol and is like chasing after her, because there's the whole scene where like Palpatine is trying to get her to kill him. And, you know, of course, there's also the thing where the Final Order actually uses one of those Star Destroyers to actually destroy that planet that like Babu Freight was on and that Zuri was on. They destroy that whole planet. So they have one of those things on every single one of those Star Destroyers. But so they like the Resistance, they show up on Exegol, and they're like, okay, everything's being controlled by one like tower there. So they gotta destroy that tower, or else all these ships won't be able to like make it out and won't be able to go anywhere. They won't be able to go to different star systems and stuff. So they're like all targeting that, and it was really cool when they showed up, because like there was only like a handful of ships. They show up and it's like, bro, look, they got hundreds, if not thousands, of Star Destroyers all lined up there. And you know how intimidating that would be? You show up, you got like 10, 15 guys with you, 10, 15 ships. You don't even have like big ships. You just got like X-Wings and stuff. And you see all these Star Destroyers, and you're like, So they immediately all started getting blasted. And it was really cool how they're like, okay, we got to get down to their level, because if we're on their level, they won't be able to fire at us without hitting each other. So all these guys are getting wrecked, and they're going to be trying to do like a ground assault to take out that like radio tower that actually like tells all the Star Destroyers like how to lift off and how to get out of there. But before they can get there, the guy on like the main capital ship is like, hey, they're targeting this. They knew the Resistance's plan. So instead they have the capital ship start doing it. So then the rebels and the Resistance actually turn around and start going and trying to attack the capital ship. So they land on there, which is really cool. And that was a really cool battle, to be honest with you. Having that battle on top of the ship where the guys that are all like, you know, charging out on top of these like space horses. And then you can see the Sith Troopers. The Sith Troopers are some of the coolest guys out there ever. But they're shooting at them. They have this giant battle there. It's actually where Rose kind of comes back in there. That's where Finn is. Poe is, of course, in his X-Wing. And you got like Snap. He's in, I think, also in an X-Wing stuff as well. But they're having that giant battle there. But it was really cool, though, the whole thing with Palpatine. How, like, Palpatine's there and he's, like, kind of explaining everything to her. And explaining that she is also a Palpatine. That he is her grandfather. And then you can kind of see, I honestly, in that scene, I had vibes of like the Geonosian Arena, because you have all these guys like up here in all these stands. I guess those were like Sith followers or something. I was kind of getting the impression that those were like other Sith, but I think it was just like people, Sith supporters, people who were like supporting the Sith and trying to like learn the religion of the Sith and stuff, but they weren't necessarily like Sith themselves. So that was really cool. And so that's actually when you know, she like is about to like, he wants her to like strike him down and kill him and actually become Empress Palpatine and to basically take his place, to become, you know, all the Sith. So that's actually when Kylo Ren shows up, and then the Knights of Ren, he's like running through the whole like thing on Exegol, and that's when the Knights of Ren show up, and they're like, they basically surround him, so they are preventing him from actually getting to Rey and to Palpatine. But because Kylo like threw his lightsaber in the water, he doesn't like really have a weapon. So they start like wailing on him, beating him down, and Kylo Ren's trying to fight him, but like there's like 6 of them, he doesn't have a weapon. So it's really cool, because then there's this scene of them like connecting with the Force, but it isn't like, it doesn't really show it in the movie. You can see by like their facial expressions that Kylo and, or I guess it would be Ben Solo at that point, but Ben and Rey are both like, they can see each other and they know what's happening to each other in that moment. And so Rey has her lightsaber in her hand, and she like brings it up, brings it behind her head, and has the blade like facing down, and then she brings her hand up and the lightsaber's gone. And then it cuts to, you can see Ben Solo, then he has the lightsaber. So he just pulls out the lightsaber, his lightsaber transfers between Rey and him. And so he's got this lightsaber now, and all the Knights around, you can see them, they're kind of like, dude, what just happened? Then he just starts going to town, just bam, bam, just racking all the Knights of Ren, absolutely destroys them all. So he kills all the Knights of Ren, and then he actually like ends up in the throne room too. And when like Rey actually like doesn't have the lightsaber anymore, that's when Palpatine realizes it. So Palpatine then like goes back on his like little weird like transport thing, and then you see all these like, I don't know, I guess what they'd be called. They were like Imperial Guards or whatever. They were like those you know, the guys in red, the, you know, A Crayola, those guys. They're kind of like him, like they're like the Emperor's guards kind of, but they all start trying to attack her, and she's just like starts wrecking them all and stuff. And then eventually Ben actually shows up into that room with her, and they're there together, and they're both like going after Palpatine at that moment. So, you know, Kylo, he's got like Rey's old lightsaber, so I guess it would be Luke's lightsaber, Anakin's lightsaber, and then Rey has Leia's lightsaber. So they're together, and then Palpatine's like, then he uses the Force, and he like pulls them like down with their knees in front of them, like lightsabers go flying, and then he starts like sucking out their life force. So he's like pulling the life out of them, and it was really cool, visually like amazing scene where you can see like the Emperor or Palpatine, like before he had like a couple fingers like missing, they all start kind of like coming back, and you can see his face starts getting like a little bit younger. I mean, it's not saying a lot, because I mean, he like looks like he's got a scrotum for a face, but he's looking a little bit better, less like undead. And then eventually you can see his like eyes start to go yellow, like they were in like Revenge of the Sith, because before they were like glazed over like white, but now they're like yellow, like he was. It basically becomes like how he was in like Revenge of the Sith. So it goes from like, you know, him being like undead from being in like Rise of Skywalker, eventually goes to like Emperor from like Return of the Jedi, and then goes to like Emperor in like Revenge of the Sith. So it was really cool. And then after they do that, both Rey and Kylo like fall over. Dude, one of the coolest scenes in the entire movie is when the ceiling thing's open, and he just like looks up in the sky, and he's just like just all his Force lightning comes out of his hands in the sky. Dude, that was some of the like the visually like one of the best scenes in the entire movie. And also like the sound design there was insane. He's just like, he's insane force lightning just shoots up in the sky, or it shoots up in the sky. Is that all the resistance guys are getting wrecked? And they're saying, like, Poe is like, oh my gosh, like, I'm leading all these guys to their death. We're gonna lose. But that's when he gets, like, a transmission over to, like, the radio or whatever, the intercom. And it's from Lando. And Lando's like, And then you see all these ships are there. There's, like, thousands of ships. And it was a really cool scene because you could see all these ships still keep coming in. Really awesome. And so they're all kind of coming in. And then they all start taking stuff out. But that's when Palpatine is like, force lightning up into the sky, and like EMPs all these guys. So they're all like shocked by the force lightning, all start falling. They don't have any power, so they're basically all about to die, right? And I think that's actually when what was that, before or after Ben like got up, but Palpatine like force pushes him out, and he like falls in this giant pit, into this like this chasm, and he's like, well, before that he's like, this is the last Skywalker. Gets rid of the last Skywalker. He falls in the pit. And so Ray is kind of sitting there, like, looking up at the sky and just seeing, like, all these ships are falling down. Like, he's doing, like, force lightning up in the sky. And that's when she's like, be with me. Be with me. And then you can start hearing all these, like, Jedi voices, which this was, I think, one of my favorite parts of the entire movie. Because then you start hearing all these Jedi voices. So you start hearing Anakin, you hear Kanan, you hear Mace Windu, you hear Yoda, you hear, who else? Luke. You hear a bunch of Jedi. I think you also hear, I know you hear Ahsoka and a couple other Jedi too. But a really, really cool scene. And so eventually they're all like, rise, rise, rise. So Rey like rises to her feet, and she like grabs a lightsaber, and she's like, then the Emperor like sees her like getting up. So he starts doing like trying to do the force lightning at her. She like blocks it with the lightsaber, and I was thinking at that moment, I was like, man, the Emperor is bad with force lightning when it comes to lightsabers. Like, Windu's blocking it with his lightsaber, and it's going back into the Emperor. Rey's blocking it with her lightsaber. And she's, like, trying to, like, push forward to get closer and closer to him. And eventually the Emperor's like, he's like, I am all the Sith. And Rey goes, like, it was a really cool scene. It kind of seems cheesy a little bit in hindsight, but the way it was actually portrayed in the movie was amazing. But eventually Rey gets the other lightsaber. She's got two lightsabers, and they're like this. And she's blocking all the force lightning, and she's like, and I am all the Jedi. And just like force lightnings, all this stuff back to the Emperor. The Emperor gets force lightning back. Explodes, the whole like place starts exploding, all the stuff, all the rocks and the arena stuff like falls down, like starts killing all those guys. Of course, the force lightning stopped in the sky. So all the ships start going again, start attacking all the ships and stuff. And then that's when like Finn and that the other lady actually destroy the command ship, and then the ship of course starts falling over. Of course Poe starts going over there to like get him, but they're like, yo Poe, you're never gonna make it. Poe's like, yeah, it's okay, I got a fast ship. Lando's like, not as fast as this ship. Lando and Chewie go over there, and like that was, I love that. It was such a heartwarming scene, seeing Lando and Chewie in the cockpit again. That was cool. But they go over there, pick up Finn and that other lady, they get into the Falcon, and they take off. And you can see all these ships then all start taking off because they basically destroy the entire fleet. So they destroyed the fleet, they're taking off out of there. So then after that happens, and Rey's doing that whole thing with the like two lightsabers, then she like falls over. She's dying because she got like her life sucked out of her basically. So she's lying there like dead on the ground. And then you see like it cuts to like a scene of the pit. You see like Kylo's, or I guess it's Ben, his hand pull up, and he's like pulling himself up. And he's like limping over to her. I thought that was a really important scene because it showed like kind of how much like Ben was in pain and how he was like basically on the verge of dying too, and how much he cared for her. That like he's climbing out of this pit to go and save her. So he goes up to her and he like is like having a hard time picking her up because he's dying too. So he like picks her up and he's holding her, and he's like, Rey, because like he loves her, and Rey's dead. He's holding her, and he's just like so distraught because Rey was just killed. And then eventually he remembers about how Rey uses that force life to actually bring him back. So he starts using it on her. And then while he's got like his hand on her stomach or something, and then eventually you see her hand come over and like grab it, and she's alive again. And it was such an amazing scene there. And it was such just a touching and heartwarming scene because you can see how much Rey and Ben care for each other. And eventually they kiss, which everyone in the theater was like, ooh! It was a good scene. I really enjoyed that. And, but then, like, right after they kiss, Ben just, like, falls over, ghosts her in real life. Like, force ghosts out of there, you know? And, so, like, you know, of course, Ben, Kylo, used the remainder of, like, his life to bring Rey back. And I was like, at that moment, I thought they were going to both be back together. But before, like, when it was just Ren or Ben, when it was just him, I was like, this can't be how it ends. There's no way. Like, oh no. Like, is Ray really going to be dead? I'm like, okay, it makes sense because he's technically the last Skywalker. So is he going to live but Ray dies? I was like, that'd be an interesting story. But instead, they swap. So Ren dies, but Ray still lives. But it showed that he cared about her. And so she ends up living, which, I mean, I was disappointed that he died, but like, yeah, it works, I guess. Like, it sucks because he was the literal last lineage of the Skywalkers. I mean, he was a Solo technically, you know, if you want to get semantics, but he was still a Skywalker. You know, his grandpa was Anakin Skywalker or Vader. She ends up leaving and she hops in the X-Wing and actually takes off. And Poe and Finn and Lando and all those guys are like, yo, there's Rey, there's, what, Red 5. So they all take off and they go back to that planet together. And it was a really cool scene there, though, because they're all celebrating, though, that like they took out the final order, the first order. They took them all out for good, that they have hope again still, and that, you know, they defeated the Emperor. And a really touching scene is when actually Maz handed Chewie a medal. I really enjoyed that because it was a kind of a throwback to Episode 4, to A New Hope. And at the end of that, Luke got a medal, Han got a medal. I think Leia might have gotten a medal. I know Leia was the one like giving them, but Chewie never got a medal. So everyone like always for the last like 40 years was making jokes like, hey, Chewie's a second-class citizen. He never got a medal. So it was cool that Chewie got a medal. Also, in one of the last scenes though, you can see Chewie like holding up the medal and is like so excited, and he's showing it off to 3PO and R2. He's like, look guys, I got a medal. I finally got it. It was really cool, but 3PO also got his memory back, though, too. Like, R2 gave him his memory back, and it was really cool. It was really touching, though, too. And eventually, you know, the final scene in the movie is where you see the Falcon actually goes to Tatooine. It goes past the Sandcrawler, and you can hear the Hootini, you know, from the Jawas, and it lands at the Moisture Farm at Luke's home on Tatooine. And I thought that was one of the coolest scenes because you can see that like there's sand stuff everywhere. It's been abandoned. No one's been there for forever. And then Rey goes down on the little piece of metal, goes down this little hill like she did in Force Awakens, and she actually like takes both lightsabers. She takes Anakin's or Luke's lightsaber, that one, puts that in like this little cloth, and then she also takes Leia's lightsaber and she folds them up, puts them like in a little bow, and then she goes back up. And she puts the lightsabers like into the ground. She uses the Force, pushes them into the ground, so they're like hidden there. So like there's where those lightsabers are at. But it also then, after she does that, it shows her. She's got her own lightsaber. And people are saying it's a golden lightsaber, look kind of orange or yellow. But she's got her own lightsaber, which people are also saying that it has elements of like her staff from The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi. Is that she took parts of that staff to make her own lightsaber, which I think was really cool. So now she has her own lightsaber. She's not constantly still using Anakin's or Luke's. Now she has her own lightsaber, but she also buried the other ones there as kind of like, you know, just in case or something like that, or just, you know, as like something, you know, really cool though. But then you can see that somebody like comes up as she's like has her lightsaber on, so she hurries and turns off the lightsaber. She's like, nobody's been here in so long. What are you doing here? Who are you? She goes, I'm Rey. And she's like, Rey who? And then Rey's like, because Rey was like, I never knew who I was before. And she's like, I am a Palpatine. But she turns, she sees like Ghost Luke and Ghost Leia there. And I thought that was such a touching scene. And she sees them and they're both like smiling at her. And so then she like turns back and she goes, Rey Skywalker. And I was like, hit me right in the feels. I was like, Rey's a Skywalker, you know? Because Ben was technically a Skywalker, but Rey is like the adopted Skywalker. She's like taking on the Skywalker name. She's becoming a Skywalker because, I mean, she was technically a Palpatine, but like she was more so a Skywalker. She like was part of the light side and the Force, and like Luke helped her out, and Rey and like Leia like kind of took Rey as like one of her own, kind of as like the daughter she never had, and you know like her son and Rey were really close, so she was basically a Skywalker. And I was like, bro, I was about to cry. And then, of course, the ending of the movie just shows Rey and BB-8 at that, like, binary sunset with the two suns just standing there, and it has the classic Star Wars, you know, theme. And I was like, oh my gosh. And then the movie ends there. And I was like, oh my goodness. Dude, that was an amazing movie. Like, I don't think I could have ended that movie any better. It was fantastic. I loved the movie. Everything about it was great, and I liked it. Everything about it turned out great. I felt like Leia's send-off was really well done. I'm glad they didn't kill Chewie. I'm glad we found out whose Rey's like lineage was, because I felt like The Last Jedi is like, oh, your parents were nobodies. Was like kind of a cop-out. I was like, nah, that's kind of lame. But it's like, yeah, your parents were kind of nobodies. I mean, they were like the children of Palpatine, or at least one of them was. But, you know, your grandpa is Palpatine. So your parents weren't, you know, anybody special. But your grandpa, he's a freaking Emperor of the Galaxy. So, really cool. I wasn't expecting that at all. But it also explains, like, how Rey has such a strong connection to the Force. And I really enjoyed it. I think that The Rise of Skywalker was an amazing end to the sequel trilogy, but it was also an amazing end to the Skywalker saga as well, because it really did wrap up things nicely, and it fixed like every single one of the issues that The Last Jedi had. And I feel like now that this movie is out, The Last Jedi is going to be rated a lot higher now. People are going to have a lot better opinion of that movie, because now they're actually able to see how the story ends. So they're like, oh, so all these things that happen in The Last Jedi, okay, this is how it connects to the overarching theme, the overarching story. Okay, this is what makes sense. But all in all, I really enjoyed the movie. One thing I disliked about The Last Jedi was I felt like it was kind of dragging on too much, and that they jumped between sets too much. There was like Crate, there was like the space battle going on, then they had like that whole casino thing going on too. And I just felt like that movie just dragged on so much in the middle that if you fell asleep in the middle of The Last Jedi, you wouldn't miss a lot. Like, you'd be like, eh, whatever. Whereas this movie, I felt like it was like everything happened for a reason, and it was definitely really well paced. That like from beginning to end, there was no part of the movie that was like boring, that you're like, okay, come on, like, all right, let's hurry up with this casino crap. Like, there's nothing like that where you're just like, all right, come on, dude. There wasn't even any dumb scenes where Kylo destroys the ship and Leia flies out into space and then she uses the Force and flies back in. Like, there wasn't anything dumb or weird or anything like that. It was just a great Star Wars movie all around, great film all around, just a general action movie in general, really fun movie, and I really did enjoy it. I think it wrapped up everything nicely, and it's one of my favorite Star Wars movies of all time now. I really enjoyed it. I think it was perfect. There's no better way to end things. There's no other way that you could have done things, especially after how things happened in The Last Jedi. There was I remember people were talking about a while ago, like a year ago, about like rumors that in this movie they were going to use like time travel to go back and reverse some of the events of The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi and stuff, and that's how they're going to solve things. And I'm like, nah, they can't like pull an Avengers and go back in time to fix things. Like, that'd be lame if they did that, especially after the Avengers did it. So they can't do that. I feel like time travel is just such a cop-out storytelling technique where it's like, oh, something bad happened, we wrote ourselves into a corner. Time travel, let's go back in time and fix things. So I'm glad they didn't do that, but they managed to fix things and like retcon the whole story without doing any of that. And I thought that was perfect the way they did it. Now, people are saying it cheapens Anakin's sacrifice in The Return of the Jedi. I don't think it does. I'm going to make a separate video talking about that, specifically about like what kind of like implications and connotations that this movie has for the previous trilogy, for the original trilogy and prequels, how it all fits together as the Skywalker saga, because people are like, it didn't have anything to do with the Skywalkers or anything like that. But that's all a topic for a separate video. But in general, The Rise of Skywalker was an amazing movie, and I loved it, and I think you guys are going to love it too. I think that the only people that dislike the movie are like hardcore Star Wars fans. And there's always the saying that nobody hates Star Wars as much as Star Wars fans. Like, it's honestly true. Like, a casual person who watches Star Wars is like, they might like, you know, I don't really enjoy it, it's not my thing. But nobody hates it as much as like actual fans of the series. Like, the only people that hate the prequels are people that love the original trilogy and that like love Star Wars. So I think this movie is great. You guys can absolutely go and see it. I think that it's the best one out of the sequel trilogy, and I think it's probably up there. I would say it ranks as high as Revenge of the Sith, A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi, and Rise of Skywalker are like, those 5 films are like the best in the entire series. I think Rise of Skywalker is better than Phantom Menace, better than Attack of the Clones. I think that Revenge of the Sith is still better. I think that is just such an amazing movie. But it might even, I feel like The Rise of Skywalker, I feel like, is actually, for me, it's personally tied with Return of the Jedi. Because they're both kind of a similar story about the Emperor and about Darth Vader or Kylo Ren. You know, they were like redeem themselves. And then, you know, like they have this giant space battle and stuff too. So they're kind of similar movies. So I would definitely rate them similar. I in my mind and in my heart, I think that they're about equal. That to me, Jedi is an amazing movie. And I also think that Rise of Skywalker is an amazing movie too. So that's my review of Star Wars Rise of Skywalker. It has an amazing soundtrack. John Williams did amazing things with this, and I love just all his work he's done on Star Wars and all movies in general, but he's just an amazingly talented person, and the soundtrack is just perfect for Rise of Skywalker. I loved it, and he also got a cameo in the movie, so John Williams did amazing things. The editors and director, like J.J. Abrams and all the editors and like people on board behind the scenes did an amazing job with like the movie in general, keeping it really well paced, having every scene contribute something to the story. There wasn't any scenes that were just pointless. I felt like the humor in the movie there was, you know, some humorous scenes, but it wasn't like over the top, like, you know, smacking you upside the head every 2 seconds, like with just constant jokes and stuff. I thought that was like some of the previous Star Wars movies, like Force Awakens and Last Jedi, did that a couple times too much, where it's just like, oh, okay, come on. Like, I'm not at a freaking comedy show here. Like, I'm trying to watch Star Wars. Like, all right, enough with the jokes already. But there was enough jokes that it was like it was still kept it a little bit lighthearted, but it wasn't too much where you're just like, you can't take it seriously. So that was good. Really enjoyed it. It was an easy to follow story. And even if you watch this movie just on your own, without really even like thinking or watching like The Force Awakens or Last Jedi or even any other Star Wars movie, it's still a good movie all around too. So that is Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker. I love it. I'm going to go see it a lot. I'm definitely going to be buying that on Blu-ray day one. I'm buying all the Lego sets and stuff. So I'm a big fan, and I really enjoyed the way the movie turned out. So let me know your guys' thoughts and opinions on this in the comments down below. I know a lot of you guys disagree and you guys don't think it was that great. And I want to hear why. But I'm going to have a separate video, like I said earlier, talking about specifically about kind of like how this movie affects the last, like the original trilogy and some of the other movies and how it all fits in together, and kind of addressing some of the Star Wars community's like hate towards this movie and seeing if it really is warranted. So that'll be a separate video coming up on the channel soon. If you, I'm assuming you guys, if you all watched the spoiler one, then you guys should also go and check out that spoiler-free review as well if you guys haven't already. But there you guys go. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Let me know your guys' thoughts on Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker Episode 9. I loved it so much. It was a perfect movie for me, and I hope it was for you guys too. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys next time.